a voice that's bigger than any other voice in this country. So stand up and be counted. Sign up and be counted. Become part of who we are.
Let's take us through action.
Let's thank our PBS sponsor, Our Action Place. I failed to mention this. Terry, would you be so kind as to put up the information about our campaign that is ongoing? Wanted to kind of give you a quick update because we're about a quarter of the way there, but there's still time, in fact, plenty of time for you to make a commitment, a pledge toward our Baby Hat campaign. Let me remind you again, we have fulfilled that $500 match. So thank you very much for helping to do that. And someone else has come forward with a $550 match. No joke. So once again, give a hat, 10 hats, 100 hats. They will be matched up to $550. And again, I know there may be some here that are capable of doing 10,000 hats. Maybe you could do 10 hats. But whatever you can do, it's okay if you just want to make this a pledge. Maybe we got to figure some things out and talk about it a little more. You just let us know what that pledge is. We'll count that toward the campaign. But if you could give today or tomorrow, text BABY19 to 91999. Well, folks, as you well know, Family Research Council is not just a national organization, but it has an international reach. But we also work actively with state officials and state policy organizations throughout the country. So coming now to the podium with a special presentation for the State Legislator of the Year Award, would you please welcome FRC's Director of State and Local Affairs, Quena Gonzalez.
Good evening. My name is Quena Gonzalez, and I have the privilege to work with state legislators, governors, and other policymakers on behalf of Family Research Council. The Samuel Adams Award is given once a year to a state policymaker who exemplifies the courage, character, and service exemplified by Samuel Adams. Last year's award recipient is with us tonight. Representative Susan Humphreys of the 99th District in Kansas was instrumental in passing last year's Child Welfare Protection Inclusion Act, which protects faith-based adoption and foster providers in Kansas who have a religious or moral belief or conviction that they need to place children in homes with a father and a mother. If you don't mind joining me, I'd like to recognize Representative Humphreys now. This year's award is being presented to a state legislator who helped turn the tide on an onslaught of pro-abortion state laws. We heard earlier today how Speaker Pelosi is blocking the Born Alive Abortion Providers Protection Act here in Washington. But pro-abortion state policymakers have gone even further this year, beholden to the abortion industry and fearful that President Trump will keep his promise to select conservative judges who will overturn Roe v. Wade. They introduced a flood of pro-abortion laws to radically liberalize later-term abortion statutes across the nation. In January, New York introduced and swiftly enacted the Reproductive Health Act, which enshrined a quote-unquote right to abortion in New York state law, regardless of what the Supreme Court may do with Roe v. Wade, and removed protections and rights for the unborn, allowing abortion for any reason, any state of pregnancy, right up until the moment of birth. When that law passed, pro-abortion radicals stood and applauded in the gallery, and Governor Cuomo lit up the Empire State Building in pink to celebrate this massive expansion and the destruction of unborn lives. Emboldened by New York's law, radical pro-abortion forces introduced a slew of similar bills in other states, and the state of Virginia soon became the left's next strategic target. So when a New York-style abortion expansion bill was introduced in Virginia, repealing Virginia's existing pro-life, its first stop was in a committee with House Majority Leader Todd Gilbert. Rather than merely vote against the bill, Delegate Gilbert dug in, questioning the bill's sponsor and forcing her to admit what was in that bill. This took courage. Just a few years ago, lawmakers in Virginia were pilloried and mocked mercilessly on the late-night shows for passing a law requiring a sonogram before an abortion, a sonogram that is standard operating procedure according to Planned Parenthood. Delegate Gilbert didn't back down. Instead, he fearlessly pressed the bill's sponsor in committee until she was forced to admit that her bill would in fact allow abortion at all stages of pregnancy, up to and including the mother is about to give birth. Delegate Gilbert's gentle but firm line of questioning laid bare the pro-abortion agenda, which refuses to protect the unborn at any stage of pregnancy, and even, as Governor Northam confirmed, after the baby is born. The bill failed, and in several other states, similar bills began to falter, including in states where pro-abortion forces thought they had the votes to pass. One person stood up. One person told the truth, and the pro-abortion onslaught of state laws suffered a huge setback. I would like to take a moment, if you will indulge me, to read from the award, not all of it, which is named after founding father Samuel Adams, who served in the Massachusetts State House and Senate, as well as becoming governor. Tonight, the award will be presented by Samuel Adam Perkins. While he is best known for being a signatory of the Declaration of Independence and for his involvement in the Boston Tea Party, Adams believed putting God first was the way to ensure the survival of the American Republic. Delegate Todd Gilbert, in recognition of your work defending the unborn and confronting the pro-abortion agenda despite tremendous pressure, and in light of your record of distinguished service on behalf of life, family, and religious liberty, Family Research Council is pleased to present you with this year's Samuel Adams Award for State Policy of the Year. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I warned folks backstage when I asked for if I could have a couple of minutes, warned them that I was both a lawyer and a politician. So you're all scared already that it might take a minute. I'm not going to tread on your time. I'm so thankful for this honor. It is a tremendous honor to have an organization like this. So many people, like those of you in attendance tonight, so many people of faith and patriotism and love of country and love of God, to be able to bestow this award to me is just a tremendous honor that I don't have words to truly describe. I wish we could have had the opportunity to see the video again tonight, because I think it sort of stands on its own for the message. And who saw the video in question? If I could just get a show of hands. So it made the rounds fairly quickly. I was in a subcommittee. We saw this bill coming, and we had the foresight to put up a high-resolution camera, knowing that we were going to ask some very probing and difficult questions of the patron. The specific question that I asked her ultimately, along a series of questions that I asked, was, if a woman is in labor, she has physical signs that she's about to give birth. And I specifically said she's dilating. Does your bill permit her to request and receive an abortion? And she had to pause for a minute, and I pressed her. I spent 14 years as a prosecutor, and I pressed. She said my bill would allow that, yes. I would suggest that even pro-choice women that saw that were for the most part horrified. People who've been through the miracle, to see someone admit that their legislative initiative would permit such horror would otherwise be a beautiful moment. Again, it speaks for itself. And this agenda that we have in this country right now is so dangerous to our core values, to the very essence of God's plan of life itself. The forces that are behind this have much different values than you and I. You know that. People ask me, why do you do this? Why do you spend time away from your family? My dear wife is here. Our son is with his grandparents. Why do you spend time away from your family, your son, your job, where you could be making money? I've been doing this for 14 years. What I routinely say is, every so often I get to make a difference. 2 or 3 times a year, I get to stop something that's bad or advance something that's good. And all the other time in between is just working to get to those moments where you're changing the world for the better. This moment actually changed public opinion polling, or helped do that, along with what happened in New York, by about 18 points. They polled it before, they polled it after. The same organization polled it, asked the same questions, and about 18% people identified as pro-life and pro-choice after New York and Virginia happened. The good Lord didn't bless me with many skills, but He did allow me to attain the skill set of a state prosecutor and lawyer and know how to get to the truth. And it was mentioned earlier that somebody told the truth. It wasn't me that told the truth. I got the bill patron to teach me. And that was what was so powerful about it, that she was willing to admit what horrific things that her legislative bill was prepared to do. As far as why do you do this? If that moment changed one heart, one mind, frankly, or saved one life, my entire time in politics, being away from my family and doing everything away from my job, every minute of it has been worth it if it saved many lives. Now we are very close to losing our majority here, and for that bill that we just talked about becoming law. And so pray for us, and if you can help us with other things besides prayers, we're open to that too. We're one vote away in the House of Delegates, one vote away in the Virginia Senate from that bill becoming law in Virginia. So brace yourselves, pray for us, help us if you can. Thank you so much again for this award, and thank you for having me tonight.
To introduce our next speaker, please welcome the Vice President for Policy and Government Affairs and the Director of the Center for Religious Liberty at Family Research Council. Please welcome Travis Weber.
The testimony you're about to hear, I believe, will be one of the most powerful ones that you've ever heard. It certainly was for me. And I think it's powerful not only in the realm of testimonies about religious freedom and human rights, but when you look at the elements of this testimony, the dignity of human life, pro-life ethic, family, human dignity, religious freedom, and human rights, all woven together in a story that is bound together by God's providence, bound together by God's sovereignty and the glory of God, majesty as our Creator. This could be the most powerful testimony that you're going to hear. Think about it. It concerns the issues that we care about here at FRC and we care about and what we're promoting here at VBS. Religious freedom is an issue in North Korea, and one who will be providing testimony tonight is originally from North Korea. This testimony doesn't just exemplify a story about North Korea that needs to be dealt with there. Rather, human rights and religious freedom issues that we face in China, Iran, Turkey, and elsewhere. As Uyghur Muslims in China face detention in camps that are being constructed, fortified right now, as China demolishes churches, imposes the state ideology on Christianity in China, and as the one testimony we will hear tonight will tell of, North Korea's government imposes harsh and oppressive rules stamping out all vestige of public worship and Christianity. These issues clearly are worldwide issues. We do deal with religious freedom here at home. We do deal with it overseas. We need to hear both stories. So tonight, I'm going to welcome to the stage Ms. Hyeon-a, a North Korea defector, whose testimony I will let speak for herself. She'll be assisted by Henry Song, a North Korea human rights activist who's based in D.C., and will be translating her story. I'm going to leave it at that and welcome them out to hear their testimony.
안녕하십니까.
Good evening.
독실한 기독교인이고 탈북 작가로 활동하고 있는 탈북자 지연아입니다.
My name is Hyeon-a. I am a devout Christian and a North Korean defector author.
먼저 저를 초대해 주신 패밀리 리서치 카운슬 트레비스 보포 대표님과 대만에서 만난 토니 포킨스 회장님을 비롯한 모든 관계자분들께 진심 감사의 인사를 드립니다.
I'd like to first thank the Family Research Council, Director Travis Weber, who first initiated this idea for me to be here, and to President Tony Perkins, and all the staff and volunteers who made it possible for me to be here tonight.
그리고 나만의 현 정권도 만나주지 않은 저를 미국에서는 6분이나 초청을 해주고 저의 이야기에 관심을 해주셔서 감사합니다.
And though the current government in South Korea would not meet me, I'd be grateful for the fact that I've been invited to the United States now 6 different times to tell my story. And I appreciate so much the interest all of you have in my story.
저는 이번까지 미국에 6번을 오게 됩니다. 원하면 한국에서 총 6번을 오게 된 이유는 모두 제가 살던 고향의 비밀을 이야기하기 위해서였습니다.
So this is my 6th visit to America, and starting from 2015, I made a visit to the United States, faraway South Korea, because I want to tell the world about the secret of my hometown. So tonight, I would like to share a story with all of you, which I will call the story of the King's Daughter.
오늘도 저는 왕의 딸의 이야기라는 제목으로 여러분과 나누려고 합니다. 그곳의 백성들은 어떤 악한 통치자로 인해 70년간의 유리 생활을 하고 있답니다. 그 나라는 전체가 감옥이었고 아무도 감옥 밖을 나갈 수 없었답니다.
In that place, the people lived like slaves under an evil dictatorship for 70 years. The entire country is one giant prison, and no one can come out of that prison.
왕을 사랑하는 사람들은 하늘에 있는 왕만 바라보며 기도할 것도 않고 반항도 하지 못합니다.
The people who love the king could only look to the heavens and pray silently. They could not resist or rebel.
너무 가난하고 신앙생활도 할 수 없는 그곳에는 사랑, 행복, 자유, 인권이라는 단어는 존재하지 않습니다.
The country is so poor and the people could not carry out a spiritual life in a place where love, happiness, freedom, human rights, those words did not even exist.
많은 사람들이 먹을 것이 없어 아상하고 왕을 믿는다고 정치범 수용소와 경계 처형을
So many people died because there was a famine with nothing to eat. And so many people who loved the king were sent to political prison camps and publicly executed.
그곳은 3대째 악한 통치자로 유생을 하고 있었습니다. 옆 나라의 풍성함은 그림의 떡이었어요.
That place has suffered under 3 generations of evil dictatorship. The country just to the south of them and the abundance overflowing there was merely a pie in the sky for the people in this country.
저도 그곳의 한 사람이었습니다. 저는 18살인 1998년
I too was one of the people from this place. When I was 18 years old in 1998, that was when I first came out of that place.
중국이 고향인 아버지는 16살 때 북한은 무료 교육이라는 말을 듣고 북한으로 들어갔습니다. 아버지는 음악을 전공하셨고 북한의 주체 사상에 대해 불만이 있었지만 표출을 못하고 살았습니다.
My father,
그러다 북한 정부의 친척 방문을 허락받고 여권을 발급받아 중국으로 가게 되었지요. 중국에서 남한의 라디오를 듣게 된 아버지로 인해 우리 집부는 남한의 가요를 준비했습니다.
my father, whose hometown was originally in China, went to North Korea when he was 16 because things were difficult in China at that time, and he heard about the free education provided in North Korea. My father studied music, and though later on he began to have doubts and complaints about the Chuche, self-reliance ideology of North Korea, he lived like everyone else, unable to express his thoughts or opinions. Later in his life, my father was able to receive permission from the North Korean government to visit his relatives in China. While there, he was exposed to radio broadcasts being from South Korea, and this led him to wanting our entire family to try to leave and go to South Korea.
가족이 함께 움직이면 의심을 받을 것 같아 아버지는 두만강 상으로 그와 엄마와 여동생과 남동생은 두만강 중류로 건너 중국의 어느 한 집에서 만나기로 하였습니다. 막상 두만강을 건너려고 하니 군인을 섭외하여야 했습니다. 그래서 어느 노부부의 집에서 3일간 묵게 되었습니다. 그리고 새벽마다 기도를 하는 노부부의 모습을 보게 되었고 이 노부부의 소개로 군인을 섭외하게 돼지고기 1kg와 빵 10개를 뇌물로 내고 강을 건너게 되었습니다. 그리고 아버지와 만나자는 약속의 장소로 갔지만 아버지는 안 계셨습니다. 집 주인에게 물어보니 탈북자들을 체포하는 중국 공안들 때문에 아버지를 먼저 보냈다고 하였습니다.
If our entire family moved about together, that would arouse too much suspicion, so it was decided that my father would cross into China upstream through the Tumen River that divides North Korea and China, while my mother and younger sister and brother and myself crossed the Tumen River into China midstream, and then meet at a house in China once we all crossed over from North Korea. When we were actually about to cross the Tumen River, due to the soldiers guarding the border, we ended up staying at an elderly couple's house for about 2 to 3 days. This was when I saw for the first time people praying. The elderly couple would pray every day in the early morning. Through this couple, we were able to meet a soldier who guarded the area we were about to cross. We bribed him with 1 kilogram of pork and 10 pieces of bread. We went to the rendezvous point in China, but our father was not at the house. We asked the homeowner where our father was, and he replied that because of the Chinese security forces cracking down on North Korean defectors, it was too dangerous, so he had to send away my father earlier than planned.
우리는 아버지를 찾을 시간도 없이 바로 중국 공안에 체포되어 북한으로 북송되었습니다. 당시 보이부 앞마당까지 탈북자들로 가동했고 어쩔 수 없이 보이부에서는 학생이 있는 가족만 집으로 돌려보냈습니다. 거주지로 돌아간 저희 가족은 사람들이 모두 모인 장소에서 공개 비판을 받고 나서야 집으로 돌아올 수 있었습니다. 그날 저녁 우리는 붙들고 울었습니다. 먹을 것은 하나도 없고 집은 도둑맞아 입을 옷가지도 없었고 아버지마저 행방을 알 수 없었습니다. 마을 사람들은 이상한 눈으로 저희를 바라보고 저희 집 흉물 보았으며 생인 동생은 학교에서 왕따를 당해요.
Unfortunately, before we could even begin to look for our own father, we too were arrested by the Chinese security authorities, forcibly repatriated to North Korea. At that time, when we were repatriated, the North Korean Boeing, the Ministry of State Security, MSS, the building was filled with repatriated North Korean defectors from China, even out into the courtyard of the building. They had no choice but to send home the repatriated families who had young students. When we were sent home, we were gathered in front of the public and publicly criticized and humiliated. Only then were we actually allowed to go home. That night, we could only embrace each other and weep. We had nothing to eat in our house, and while we were away, the house was robbed. So we had nothing to wear, nothing to eat, and worse yet, we had no idea where our father was. The people in our village looked at us with suspicion, talked behind our backs about our family. My two younger sisters were bullied and ostracized at school.
당시 북한은 350만여 명이 굶주림으로 아사하였고 수많은 봇제비와 북중 국경을 넘는 탈북자들이 발생하게 되었습니다. 식량 대용으로 남은 껍질을 먹다 보니 사는 인순살이 되고 사람들은 영양실조로 말라 있었습니다. 이러한 상황에 엄마는 여동생과 함께 감시를 피하여 중국에 갔고 딸과 성경책을 가지고 갔습니다. 당시 조선족 교회에서는 국경을 넘어온 탈북자들에게 하룻밤 성경 공부를 시키고 딸 배낭에 성경책을 넣어 보냈습니다. 이때 쌀과 성경책은 미국 선교사님들이 제공한 거였습니다. 제가 이 자리를 빌어 모든 미국 교회와 선교사님들께 감사의 인사를 드립니다.
That time period was when North Korea was going through extreme famine and hardship, whereby an estimated up to 3.5 million North Koreans starved to death, resulting in a countless number of gojebi, or homeless street children, and defectors who crisscrossed the China-North Korea border. The people ate tree bark as substitute for food, so entire mountains were stripped barren, and countless number of people ended up looking like thin, walking sticks due to malnutrition. In this situation, my mother and younger sister avoided the monitoring of the authorities, who were able to go to China again, and came back with rice and a Bible. At that time, the ethnic Korean Chinese churches helped North Koreans who crossed the border by having Bible studies with them and giving them sacks of rice with Bibles hidden inside. During that time, much of the rice and Bibles were supported and sent by American missionaries. So I want to just pause here and personally thank all the American churches and missionaries.
딸과 성경책 가지러 갔지만 다시는 돌아오지 않았습니다. 저는 9살 된 동생과 성경책을 보았습니다. 태초에 천지를 만드신 그 하나님께서 북한을 회복해 주시지 않으실까라는 생각을 하는 순간 보이부에서 연락을 받고 가게 되었습니다. 가자마자 저는 고문을 받았고 무엇 때문에 고문을 받는지 알 수가 없었습니다. 보이시더원은 미국 선교사님들과 남한의 안기부와 연락하고 있냐고 물었습니다. 모른다고 하자 책상 위에 제가 보던 성경책을 올려놓으며 이 책에 대해 이야기하라고 하였습니다. 저는 깜짝 놀랐습니다. 길가에서 주었지만 시간이 없어서 마치지 못했다고 어쩔 수 없이 거짓 실토를 했습니다. 보이시더원은 몇 번을 재확인하고 나서야 저를 돌려보냈습니다. 신앙의 자유가 없는 북한을, 기독교인들을 핍박하는 북한을 재확인하는 순간이었습니다.
My mother and younger sister went back again to China to get more rice and Bibles, but this time they did not come back. I had a chance to start reading the Bible with my younger brother, who was 9 years old at that time. I began to think, perhaps the God who, in the beginning, created the heavens and the earth, maybe restore North Korea as well. That thought was cut short when I was ordered to go immediately to the local Boeing state security headquarters. As soon as I arrived, the agents began to beat and torture me, but I had absolutely no idea why I was being tortured. The agent interrogated me and asked if I was in contact with American missionaries and South Korean intelligence agents. I said, I don't know. And as soon as I said this, the agent took the Bible I had been reading earlier on and demanded that I give him an explanation about it. I was so shocked and surprised to see the Bible I had been reading right in front of my eyes. I had no choice but to lie, and I said I picked it up on the street, but didn't have time to report it to the proper authorities. The agent kept on repeating the question, checking my answers, and then finally released me to go home. This experience was a reality check for me, the North Korean government persecuting Christians in a land where there was no freedom of religion.
그러던 어느 날 저는 동네 아저씨의 거짓말에 중국어로 인신매매됐고 두 번째 탈북을 하게 되었습니다. 몇 명의 브로커들을 거쳐 드디어 제가 살게 될 유럽 할리우드 했습니다. 그 이듬해인 1999년 4월까지 20살의 저는 없었습니다. 내가 어딘가에 있는 것 같았고 나에게 벌어지는 모든 일들은 인간에게서는 일어날 수 없는 일들이 있습니다. 독성된 후 북한 청진집결서의 강제 납태 방법은 북한의 지옥임을 다시 확인하는 순간이었습니다.
Then one day, I decided to escape North Korea again. The second time, I realized once I set foot in China that I had been fooled by my neighbor who helped me escape, that I was sold into a human trafficking situation. Several human traffickers and brokers tried to sell me to different men. When I finally arrived at the house that I was sold to, from that day until the following year, April 1999, when I was 20 years old, I did not exist. And what I mean by that is that it seemed like I was in another place. My body was in another place. And what I experienced during that time were things that no human being should ever experience. My situation only worsened because I was arrested and repatriated to North Korea. When I was sent to the Chikyorso, or the administrative detention facility in Cheongjin, North Korea, I became a witness to the horrors of the North Korean government's forced abortion policy.
헌혈을 인정하지 않는 북한 정권은 구성된 임산부들을 강제 낙태합니다. 강제 낙태 방법은 네 가지입니다. 건설 현장에서 무거운 건설 자재를 등에 지고 뛰게 하는 방법, 머리에 두 손을 올려 앉았다 일어났다 100번 하는 방법, 태아의 머리가 있는 벽에 주사를 놓아 강제 낙태하는 방법, 마취 없이 강제 낙태 수술하는 방법, 매일 저녁 해산의 고통 소리, 수많은 아이들의 죽음과 피난 우리를 더 이상 지탱할 수 있는 힘을 주지 않았습니다.
The North Korean government does not recognize mixed race or mixed blood people. When repatriated North Korean women are found to be pregnant, they are 100% forced to have an abortion. The regime carries out its forced abortion through 4 different methods. Forcing the pregnant women to carry heavy construction materials on their backs and run in construction sites in order to induce a miscarriage. Forcing pregnant women to put their hands on their heads and do repeated squatting, sitting down and standing up for 100 times. Again, in order to induce a miscarriage. Inserting a needle into the womb to the unborn child's head to kill the baby. Carrying out surgical abortion without any anesthesia. Every night I was held in a detention facility. I heard the screams of suffering of women who gave birth only to have the infants killed, and the anguished cries of the mothers who lost their babies. The countless number of young lives that were killed, and their spilled blood sapped the strength from our bodies.
그리고 저는 북송지에 온 엄마를 만났습니다. 엄마는 여동생과 함께 성경책을 넣은 쌀배낭을 짊어지고 국경을 건너다 불쌍해서 나타난 인신의 분들에게 납치되어 팔려가게 되었다며 여동생도 팔렸다고 했습니다. 엄마는 16살 어린 딸이 눈앞에서 팔렸는데 엄마라는 내가 할 수 있는 것이 없었다니 남동생 소식을 묻습니다. 남동생은 어제비가 되어 어디로 갔는지 알 수 없는 상태였습니다. 그리하여 우리 집 식구는 모두가 흩어져 있고 행방을 알 수가 없었습니다.
At the detention facility, I was able to reunite with my mother after she too was repatriated to the same facility. My mother and younger sister retreated back to North Korea with rice sacks loaded with violence, were caught by human traffickers right on the border and sold. My mother told me she felt so hopeless as a mother to see her 16-year-old daughter getting bought and sold right before her eyes, and asked about my younger brother. He unfortunately became a homeless street kid, and we could not know where he was. So our entire family was broken up, and we did not know the whereabouts of one another.
엄마와 저는 증산 11호 교화소로 가게 되었고 엄마만 몸이 불편하여 교화소에 저만 남게 되었습니다. 교화소는 그야말로 지옥이었습니다. 홀로코스트가 따로 없었습니다. 많은 수신대를 채우기 위해 개구리를 껍질 발라서 살아있는 메뚜기를 날개만 뜯고 그 자리에서 삼켰습니다. 비위생적인 생활로 사람들은 설사를 하려고 설사 3일 만에 숨을 거두었습니다. 살아있는 사람들이 할 수 있는 거라고 체감지 못한 눈을 감겨주는 거였습니다.
My mother and I were then sent to the Chungsan Gyohaso, or prison camp number 11, a correctional labor and education camp. My mother had become too frail and ill, so she was released earlier than I was. The prison camp was truly hell on earth. This was a modern-day Holocaust that I was experiencing. So many prisoners tracked hunger by catching and eating frogs, grasshoppers, whatever they can get their hands on. The unsanitary conditions in the prison camp led to many prisoners suffering from diarrhea and many dying in 3 days. The only thing the living could do in this prison camp was to close the eyes of the dead who died, or too weak to even close their own eyes on their own.
저는 그 다음 해에 2000년인 2월 16일 김정일 생일을 맞으며 화면을 받고 8개월 만에 나오게 되었습니다. 저는 다시 탈북을 하게 되었고 인신매매로 1년 만에 다시 육성되었을 때 저는 홀몸이 아니었습니다. 저는 임신 3개월이었습니다. 이미 헌혈을 인정하지 않은 북한 정권을 잘 알기에 저는 두려웠습니다. 저는 어느 한 책상 앞에서 멈췄습니다.
The following year, on February 16, 2000, I was pardoned because that is Kim Jong-un's birthday. So after 8 months in that hellhole, I was released. Soon after, I escaped North Korea again, and again, I was sold into a human trafficking situation. It did not last long because, unfortunately, I was arrested and repatriated back to North Korea again.